Welcome to the podcast. We do recover with Jared Miller, your host.
And I'm Dr. Terry Sellers, your co-host.
This is a podcast about recovery from addiction.
We want to talk about what successful recovery can look like.
Brought to you by Diamond Detox, Rise Up Supplements, and the Hilton Garden Inn.
Welcome to episode 160, everybody. The title is going to be A Conversation with Curtis Puzey. With that being said...
It's the Curtis Puzey.
Yeah, he told us. He told us at the start of this. It's a conversation with the Curtis Puzey.
I'm already making it about myself, man. That's not what I'm about.
He goes also by the Birdie Slayer, which was given to him by our last week's podcast guest, Jordan Birmingham. And there's a little story behind that. Let's start this off with how we met. So Curtis, I haven't known Curtis very long. He's a new friend to me, but he's slowly becoming one of my favorite people on this planet. We met. Go ahead. How do we meet?
So we started. Jim actually got us out playing golf.
Good old Jim Smith.
Jim Smith, and got us out at Green Springs, and we started out with recovery golf is what we do, and I first met you there, and.
Which was kind of cool because I'm a Davis County guy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, where'd you grow up? And you're like, oh, I think you said Clinton.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no way, I'm from West Point, right?
Yeah.
And then before you know it, you knew my little brother. And it's wild how, you meet somebody who has grew up in the same spot as you, and you have, a ton of acquaintances and people and similar memories and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, it was crazy when I found out your last name was Miller, because I was like, man, I've been really following Jordan's story, your little brother with his kidney problems, and to hear that you were his older brother, I was like, man, what are the chances of that? Like, it's cool, good stuff.
And that's a good story too, right?
Yeah,
Dude gets a kidney, from a guy from St. George. I don't want to take credit for it, but I'm pretty sure I shared it out, and hopefully people locally here, saw it. Anyways, I'm not trying to make it about me, but it's phenomenal that my little bro got a kidney. Yeah.
Who did he get it from?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, good question. I don't particularly know. I'm a bad brother. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
Speaking of that though, let's talk a little bit about golf, because here's what happened. I just want to make this official for everybody. Golf is part of our recovery. So this is very prominent in all of this. So Jordan was coming down last week to be the guest, right, with Dr. Sellers. Met Curtis. Curtis is a good dude. He could get us on at Copper Rock. And so he does. And the whole time, Jordan is like, dude, you're not bringing like a gunslinger, are you? And I'm like, no, dude, no. No, Curtis is like, we've played together. We're about the same, talent. Pull up do you have your 18 Birdies app?
I don't use that.
Oh, you
app.
don't use 18 Birdies?
No.
Well, that's too bad. I wish you had your scorecard, because I wanted to go hole by hole.
Yeah,
what did you end up scoring, man?
Oh, I can remember. I remember every golf shot for my rounds these days. I ended up shooting 80 on the dot, which is my personal record at Copper Rock. I was frustrated because I was killing it, man, and I was just in the zone. Every drive was right down the middle. Every putt was falling. And anyway, I came down to 17, and I had to shoot 5 over or better, which is very reasonable, especially with how I was playing that day.
I remember we were sitting in the cart, and you're like, dude, I'm going to break my best record here. I played this course like 500 times.
Not just here, ever. And it was by a few strokes. I was looking at 79 is my best score I've ever shot. And anyway, we come down. I'm pacing the tee box on 17 like, I'm going to do it. Hit my shot. My second shot was the one that really got me. Hitting it out of the bunker, caught it, bladed it, hit it out of play. Ended up triple bogeying 17, which is one of the easier holes on the course. It's the signature hole. It's the one we get all excited about.
After 16 holes of birdies and pars, which was ridiculous for the rest of us, right? Like, the rest of us wanted to choke you out because you were playing so well,
Well, the day before, I couldn't get the ball in the air.
I remember I was there.
Yeah, it was rough. I'd like to blame that on the night before when I was passing a kidney stone, but
hey,
excuses. Golfers are full of them. But anyway, we get to 18, and I'm like, okay, if I make a bogey here, I still get my personal best. End up, get to the tee box, Try to decide between driver and 5-wood. End up going with 5-wood, which is Old Reliable. That is my go-to club, and it always has been. And I tow hook it into the water. And that ball that I had all day, I was ready to display it. I was all excited.
Yeah, you
I'm like,
played with the same ball the
same
entire
ball all day.
time.
Yeah.
And it took it
that course,
got wet on 18.
Yeah, in that course, you can lose some balls. That's for sure. But
yeah, I think I lost a half a bag of balls. So comparison, he shot an 80. I shot a 93 that day. Yeah.
And the day before, you beat me, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were on fire.
Yeah.
I did have a birdie on the hardest hole, according to you. You know,
Yeah, 13, dude.
rock.
Nobody birdies 13.
That was mad wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, super fun, man. Super fun. I'm glad you're on here. I appreciate you coming on my podcast, even if you are a better golfer than me some days. Before we jump into Curtis's story here, let's show a little love to our sponsors. Episode 160 is brought to us by Diamond Detox. Let Diamond Detox be the first step on your path to hope, help, and healing. Call their free and confidential number at 385-988-5332 or visit their website at diamonddetox.com. We appreciate them sponsoring this podcast. Episode 160 is also brought to us by Rise Up Supplements. Rise Up Supplements is a nootropic supplement line aimed at optimizing brain function and supporting mental health. They have 2 powerful blends. Mindful Mood helps decrease anxiety and enhance mood. Mind Shift helps increase focus and optimize brain function. Place your order today at riseupsups.com. That's RISEUPS.com. Appreciate them sponsoring this podcast. All right, Curtis, speaking of supplements, man, I got you one of each.
Dude, you're the man.
Remember,
I'm excited. I've been looking into this stuff.
Blue is slow down,
Okay.
right? That's it. It slows down the neurotransmitters in the brain. It's got some lion's mane in there, some rhodiola. The red is the gas pedal, right? So like I was telling you before, I take 1 capsule of the red when I take it, just because if I take 3, I'm going to clean my entire house, get all of my charting done.
Love it.
Like it turns me into Superman.
Well, I need to clean my house, so yeah.
Okay.
We'll test it out.
Dude,
I'll
let me-
report.
yeah, let
I'll
me
report
know.
to you.
Let me know.
Yeah.
Let
Thank
me
you.
know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And thanks for having me, man. I'm super excited. I feel like I've got a story to share, and
Speaking
yeah,
of that, let's get into that.
'Kay.
So obviously you're on a podcast about recovery.
Mhm.
Where does your story begin?
Okay, well, first thing I want to start, Renaissance Ranch. I'm going to be working there. We're opening up Monday, and I just want to get the word out that we are super stoked to finally get it open, and we are trying to recreate that same culture and brotherhood that is up north in Bluffdale, which has a great reputation.
Let me pause you one sec, because a lot of our listeners are from out of state, and so they might not know Renaissance Ranch is a huge organization that has done a phenomenal job for decades at helping treat men, right, with substance abuse and some mental health stuff. Most recently, Curtis has gotten a job working at, they opened a residential. Our buddy Chad, Brandon, got the licensing and got all the stuff together. What a stud, first of all, right?
That guy's
Like,
awesome.
What a good dude.
That guy's awesome.
I love that little guy. And so you're letting us know their residential program in Southern Utah opens up on Monday.
Correct. Yeah, and we have an IOP, but yeah, the residential's opening up. We're a faith-based program. You don't have to be LDS to come. You don't have to be Christian. We realize that when you come into recovery, a lot of times people are having a faith crisis.
Yeah.
But if you are LDS, this is the place that you want to go. And like, this is a perfect match for me because that has been a huge part of my recovery, is involving Jesus Christ and applying the 12 steps in my life, which is ultimately I look at as putting a magnifying glass on the atonement of Jesus Christ. And to put that into a recovery center is a match made in heaven for me. And I'm super stoked to be doing that for a living. Like, are you kidding me? I got to do that for a living. Little do they know I do it for free, but hey, they'll pay me.
Don't say that on a podcast. Don't say that, right? No, that's cool. That's a good attitude to have. I can remember some of my first podcasts saying that, like, I can't believe I get paid to do what I do. Yeah. And yet we got bills we got to pay, right?
Yeah.
Pay this man.
Yeah.
Dixon's, pay this man, right?
I haven't even started yet.
I have a feeling that you will do well in this industry because of just what you just shared, right?
Awesome.
So for those of you that are watching it, show them the little logo on the T-shirt. Boom, little Renaissance Ranch love. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I totally spaced that, and I'm glad that we did it. We'll also put the contact information on the Facebook for Renaissance down here. Okay. Your story,
time,
man.
Story time.
Tell us about Curtis Puzey,
Curtis Puzey,
a.k.a. Puzey.
the Curtis Puzey. So I grew up in Clinton, Utah. Living in Clinton was like The Sandlot. If you've seen the movie The Sandlot, It was like a different world. Our neighborhood, 1930 West, was like those neighborhoods don't exist anymore. Just the connection. All the neighbors were friends. Everybody came out together, and we all played
Kids
sports.
actually played outside.
Yeah, and it was
you guys were
awesome.
right by a park, so you could go sledding in the little divot thing they had there.
Yeah,
play
the pit,
softball, the pit, baby. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a really cool, a really cool way to grow up, and I want that for everybody, man. And it just doesn't exist anymore. But anyway, with that being like a paradise in my eyes, like it was super cool. There's tragedy, there's stories that happen, there's things that happen that will rock a person and a family's life. And when I was 6 years old, some of my first memories of my life were with my brother Matt, and he was 16, I was 6. He used to call me best bud. Like, we were tight. We were good. We were good buds, and me and my family were really close. And anyway, he just gotten his license and was excited to do that. I was playing basketball with him the day that this happened. Right after we were playing, my sister said, "Hey, I need a ride to Mutual." So he's like, "Sweet, I got my license. I'll take her." He takes her, and then decided to go to a Weber State football practice afterward. And just because he was excited to get his license, big sports fan, and used to do that quite a bit.
So at the Weber State University in Ogden.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct. And anyway, he was up watching the practice and was sitting up on the top wall and actually ended up falling and fell to his death. And it rocked our family's world for sure. What some of my first memories of tragedy is a tragedy. And seeing my mom running up the stairs, just hysterical. And that's one of my first memories of life. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even cry. I was 6 years old. I didn't really know how to react, but I was like, what is going on? This is crazy how our perfect little paradise just got shaken that quick. And anyway,
that's a fast way to break your sense of security and consistency. And
absolutely.
Yeah. Older brother's here one day, gone the next.
Yeah. And I looked at him as like he was a perfect, obviously he wasn't, but in a kid's eyes, he was my idol. Like, I really looked up to him, and I found myself trying to be like him, how I pictured him. Mm-hmm. And that led to perfectionism, which is something that is a huge character defect of mine.
Which is one of the things that we do when we lose a loved one is we put them on a pedestal, right?
Yeah.
Like, I know when I lost my brother Jason, I put him on a pedestal, and so what you're talking about, the perfectionism, is like when they're on that pedestal, you don't get to see their flaws and their shortcomings, and right, the humanism that they have. And so in this in your mind's eye, you're trying to live up to this legend in your mind, right? Yeah. And that leads to that perfectionism, which leads to anxiety, which leads to depression, because you feel like you're constantly letting yourself down. Yeah. Not that I've ever experienced that, right? I'm totally just getting that from your story. Yeah. I don't struggle with any of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And anyway, that was a tough one. And then fear of abandonment, which you'll see is a huge theme in my recovery. I've had a lot of instances where I put my faith in the wrong place, and finding God was a tough journey for me, and I had to go through a lot of experiences where I lost things that were near and dear to my heart, and this is where it started.
So some of that just by tragedy, some of that self-inflicted, I'm sure, right?
Absolutely.
Because when we're running and gunning and ripping and running, you're going to lose things that are near and dear to you. That's the negative consequences. So let me ask you this. Tragedy strikes a family at 6 years old. Okay. You start with this perfectionism thing that we both have kind of agreed can lead to some anxiety, some depression, right? Never being satisfied. I always say this to people, when did you find a solution or a coping skill in substances? Because that's usually how it happens.
Yeah. So high school, I got on the whole thing going to the doctors and them trying to figure out antidepressants that would work for me, anti-anxiety pills. And I eventually got prescribed Xanax. And that's when everything went downhill. Is when
Truthfully, did you know of like Xanax? Had you like were you trying to manipulate the doctor, or were you genuinely just like, I didn't know anything about the medication. Here I was
super naive. I had no idea you could abuse it. And anyway, I was a super, naive kid and innocent. And
the almighty doctor, love you, Dr. Sellers, but he'll agree, right? Part of this thing is the prescribers.
Yeah.
So the almighty doctor, in our eyes,
so
gave you something that you could take.
Yeah, and it was a low dose at first, and I was like, it doesn't even do anything, so we upped my dose. And I remember taking one and then waking up the next day feeling on top of the world, where I was like, what is going on? I had no idea what the source was. I remember getting up and looking and seeing my pills actually spilled on the table, and I went and counted them, and I'd taken like 5 or 6
that's scary.
milligrams of Xanax. And
so there's the abuse. Introduce the abuse.
And it was a relief that I'd been searching for my whole life. And it was a chase for that feeling from then on.
At first.
It
was the solution at first.
It was the solution.
Till it became the problem.
And it became a problem real quick.
Okay, so high school, you get on, prescribe some benzos, you start to abuse it, and you're like, oh, man, if I could feel like this every day, life would just be peachy.
Yep.
Right? That's introduced the first wrong thought. Right?
Yep.
Okay.
And then
where does it go from there?
Got to a point where I was working in an old folks home, and I was stealing medications from the old folks home. And I could get away with it. And it was one of those things that was scary. That was a scary step 9, by the way. That's one of those where it's like, are they going to press legal charges?
I was about to ask Denovan, what's the run out on that? You know, when you can, the statute of limitation.
What? I don't know.
He's not.
How do I know these things?
Okay, so very quickly you went from being naive kid that was prescribed some benzodiazepines to, you're ripping off the old folks home because you're now a street doctor, pharmacist, and patient.
Yep. And getting my own pills, getting more and more.
Sure.
Where I'm running out of 60 milligrams of Xanax in 3 days. And then I have 27 days or 24 days because addicts know when you can refill your prescriptions. To where I was like, I got to fill it with something. So Ambien came into the picture, Adderall, and eventually alcohol. And when I combined alcohol and Adderall, that is when the trouble really, really started.
So let me get this right. You start off with some anxiety from perfectionism. You get prescribed benzodiazepines. You realize you can abuse them. You start abusing them. I imagine you were a little bit sedentary because of the benzos, and so you started taking the Adderall to counter effect that, and then you got anxiety from the Adderall, so you decided to down it with a little bit of alcohol.
Couldn't have put it any better.
Makes perfect sense.
Makes perfect sense.
Let me ask you this, and just truthfully, right? Like, we both have talked about this. Like, we're done being ashamed of the stuff we've done because that's not who we are today. As you look back, can you honestly say, like, did you feel like you were still doing good in life, or did you start to realize, like, man, some of my responsibilities, some of my goals, or the things that are important to me are starting to slip, or did a family member ever say to you, like, hey, we're concerned? What were the early warning signs that the brakes may have been out of the vehicle? That was a really long question.
Yeah, no, you're good. I never felt like I was successful. I mean, I never had a point where I thought, you know what, this is working for me or not. And I finally I lost a girlfriend that was close to me, and it was because of that. Like, that's when it started, and she would have to reach out to my parents and say, hey, something's off. Like, something's not clicking. And that's when it started, when my family started getting involved. And then
What age are you at this time?
Early 20s, maybe 24, 25 maybe. And that was the benzo, so that was a little earlier. I got Adderall a little later than that, and the alcohol I didn't start drinking until I was 26. And and that's when crap hit the fan
I
really
appreciate
quick.
you saying that, though, because a lot of people get this idea that, Curtis here started off taking benzodiazepines as prescribed in high school, and then overnight just everything fell apart. That's not always true. I mean, you're talking about if you were 16 and you didn't start drinking until you were 26, there was a decade of a slow progression.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah,
And that's part of this disease of choice is exactly that. It's a slow progression. And most of the time, you don't realize you got a problem until the problem's so big you don't know what to do about it.
Yep.
It's the craziest thing.
Yeah, and then this next story that I'm going to tell is where the problem became very evident.
Very apparent.
Yes.
Okay. Slapped you in the face. You can no longer deny that you had a problem.
Absolutely. This is one that I need to be delicate with because it is a funny story now to a lot of people, but this was a tough thing for me and my family because it went public.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I told you this story. This is a doozy. I worked for my brother in FedEx. He owned routes in working for FedEx, and I used to drive for him. And this is when I was taking a lot of Adderall and getting anxious from it. So I was drinking, and it got to a point where I was blacking out all the time. And I'd wake up and like, what do I need to fix today? And then there was this time where the night before this happened, I remember drinking, and I get little glimpses of this day, but I was completely blacked out, and I showed up to work, and I remember getting a few glimpses here and there driving for FedEx in Huntsville, and I was absolutely blitzed. I mean, I was hammered, and I ended up rolling the FedEx truck into a ditch at 11 a.m., and ended up in a river, a stream. And I remember a guy just banging on the door, waking me up. And I mean, I'm lucky I didn't drown.
He probably thought you were dead.
Yeah. I mean, I was out cold, and I mean, I was out in the middle of nowhere, so it took him a while till he found me. And anyway, I ended up getting out, and the guy ended up calling the cops, and I ended up getting a DUI, blowing almost 4 times the legal limit at 11 a.m. at work, where I was a professional driver. Like, are you kidding me? The insanity of this disease is real.
Yeah, man.
And I was driving for my brother, and
So that looks bad on his business.
Yeah. The cost, loss, pain, and damage of this whole thing was huge because it ended up headlining the news, every channel, and it was crippling, man. It was humiliating for my whole family, and I was starting to realize, like, dude, I'm bringing everybody into this. This is more than just me.
Yeah.
And it caused a lot of family drama. My brother, who is my best friend today, he wouldn't talk to me for a long time, and rightfully so. Like, I screwed him over, and he gave me multiple chances. And to have a public humiliation like that is, I mean, that'll break a person's heart. Like, I betrayed his trust. And,
Sure.
And it was a tough thing for me. And I remember when I found out it was going to be on the news, it's like 2 days after it happened. I thought I dodged a bullet. And
Did they take you to jail?
yeah. So I got a DUI. I went to jail.
Got bailed out?
Got bailed out. It took a while. I had to convince my parents, like, you got to get me out. And this was before they knew, before they started setting boundaries. Because once they started setting boundaries, that's coming up. But that's when I started getting better.
But at this point, it's apparent. Everybody knows.
Everybody knows.
And we got about a minute left here until we go into a break. Can I just share with you what I'm kind of observing?
Yeah, let's hear it.
I can tell that this is still a pain point in your life because of the nervousness in your voice and the caution in which you share it. And I totally respect that. And I hope that by you sharing it can show some people that that's who I was, right? I'm trying to heal from it and move forward from it. And I love that you're talking about, like, the damage out, because you could have made it just about you, but it wasn't. It was about your brother. It was about his company. It was about your family, right? It was, yeah, man. Yeah, I got a lot of respect for you. Thank you for coming on and sharing that, especially how it went that public, right?
Yeah.
So for those people that are listening to this, man, you know how you dump shame? You share it, right?
100%.
So thank you for that,
Yeah,
dude.
you bet.
You for
Thank
that. We're going to be right back with a lot more of Curtis Puzey's story right after this sponsorship from Diamond Detox. We'll see you guys in a bit.
You are listening to We Do Recover with Jared Miller and co-hosted by Dr. Terry Sellers. We'll be right back after this short break with more of We Do Recover with Jared Miller. Brought to you by Diamond Detox, Rise Up Supplements, and the Hilton Garden Inn.
The team at Diamond Detox is compassionate, helpful, and trained to support every step of the healing journey. Your loved one's path to a healthier, happier life starts with a free and easy 20 to 30-minute assessment over the phone or a few questions submitted online on the Diamond Detox website. Assessments and admissions occur 7 days a week, depending on availability. To begin the path to recovery, visit diamonddetox.com or call 385-988-5332.
We welcome you back to We Do Recover with Jared Miller, co-hosted by Dr. Terry Sellers. Brought to you by Diamond Detox, Rise Up Supplements, and the Hilton Garden Inn. And now with part 2 of our podcast, Jared Miller and Dr. Terry Sellers.
I don't know if you guys know this, but the dude that just did that sponsorship mention is none other than Utah Jazz legendary Big T, right? Holy cow. That guy was on my podcast as a tiny little screen because he, of course, zoomed in. He was getting ready to call the Minnesota Jazz game. Thoreau Bailey, Big T. So,
Dude, I had to follow
Big
that.
T.
Yeah, I had to follow that up, man. I was
dude,
like,
and you're gonna
I was
trump
like,
it.
this is real.
This guy? This guy?
That guy,
Big
right?
T,
Oh my
man.
gosh.
Big T, baby. It's cool. If you'd have told me in the 90s when I was watching him when I was a kid that he would be on my podcast, I would have told you that you were crazy and I didn't know what you were talking about. So, yeah,
Good stuff, huh?
good stuff. Hey, episode 160 is also brought to us by the Hilton Garden Inn. If you or your loved ones traveling through southern Utah, check out the Hilton Garden Inn in St. George, Utah. They have amazing amenities. It's always clean. It is always bright at the Hilton Garden Inn in St. George, Utah. Give them a Google search. Give them a shot at your business. We appreciate them sponsoring this podcast. Okay, Curtis, we ended the break on a very heartfelt moment for you, I could tell.
Yeah.
And again, I appreciate you being brave enough to share that story because just in the vibe I got, I can tell that it was a deep one for you.
Yeah.
And I held back every fiber of my being to not crack a in a van down by a river joke from Chris Farley, right? If you want to roll a FedEx truck in a van down by the river.
Oh, goodness.
We got to do a skit one of these days.
We got
you know?
We got
I want to make like some funny like YouTube videos of like people's darkest moments. And it's going to be a theme of like, you know, tragedy plus time equals humor, you know?
Dude, it's 100%. Yeah, you can have good laughs about your hard times for sure.
Absolutely. And I swear if we do it, we're going to kick it off with in a FedEx truck down by the river, bro.
Chris Farley, huh?
Oh,
Good stuff.
good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, so the cat's out of the bag at this point. Family knows, right? Sounds like news networks know,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So where does life go from there for Curtis?
Using the day after, unfortunately. Like I was so devastated to where I had no other skills or solutions, and I was using right after.
Because again, an important part of this for people that are normies that don't understand this is to an addict, that's the solution.
Right.
Like we don't want to have all these negative consequences, but that's the disease. It starts off as a choice and it becomes a disease, right? Continued use despite negative consequences. So it makes absolutely all the sense in the world for you to say the next day I used.
Yep.
Because I didn't know how else to cope.
Absolutely. And from there, just continued to use, and I have a million stories I could share of where I made a mess of my life, and from babysitting nieces and nephews to passing out in a Cafe Rio salad with nieces and nephews around, like looking, what is going on with Uncle Kurt? Like, really? So when
So just destruction.
Yeah, and then I when I decided to finally go to treatment, I was on my way to Cedar City for.
What age are you at this point?
I'm 27. I am
Like in your story, you're 27 at this point. You're
27, and I am heading up to Cedar City to do a job. I was doing construction because that's the only job I could get, and I had a nice enough guy that was able to hire me, and he was so good to me. This guy was awesome. He was so patient with me. He knew what was going on, and he still was patient with me.
I appreciate you sharing that. I really do, because, yeah, sure, the DUI would hold you back from getting jobs, but the public humiliation of going through that and having it being on the news, I bet you were like, who's going to hire me now?
Yeah.
So, and kudos to this guy who's willing to give you a shot, right? Like, thank God for people out there that allow us to rebuild our lives.
Yeah, and I screwed him over so many times. Took from him. I took money from him. I mean, I was in a dark place, and he, thank goodness for the 12 steps and making an amends. Like, that was one of those that was one of the biggest one for me, because he was so good to me. And anyway, I was on my way to Cedar City, and I finally had enough. And I'm like, okay, I talked to a place called Therapia, is where I started treatment. They said we need $5,000 down, and then insurance will cover the rest. I called my parents and said, I hate to do this, but I have to have a loan for $5,000. I've got to get into treatment. I can't keep doing this to my family. I can't keep doing this to me. I'm going to die, is what it comes down to. And anyway, my parents...
You hadn't already.
Yeah, absolutely. And anyway, I ended up getting into Therapia, and the first 3 days of treatment were torture, man. It was hard. Crap got real really, really, really fast, and
Why?
I had no solutions. All those feelings that I had numbed out for all these years came crashing in, and I was scared out of my mind. And I was like, what did I get myself into? And they had a thing that I had to sign that said, if you check out early, we're still going to charge you this much money for the time that you were supposed to be here. So that kept me in, which I'm grateful for. I think every treatment center should do that, because I would have left. I mean, it was tough. And
I won't share my feelings on that, but I'm glad that it worked for
a
you.
lot of people have. Yeah,
I don't like holding people hostage, but I'm glad that it worked as like a motivator for you to be like, no, my family sacrificed for me to be here, and so I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Good.
And a lot of people have had that same take. And for me, it woke me, reality hit really quick. I saw all the damage that I had done and needed to face it. And anyway, I was finally feeling really well, like laughing, I was genuinely happy. And this is 37 days into treatment. We get a message from Therapia saying, hey, we're closing down tonight. Like
you're in inpatient treatment.
Inpatient treatment.
That they're pulling the plug.
And so here comes that fear of it.
$5,000.
Yeah, here goes that fear of abandonment. But anyway, this is where the ranch comes into play, and Renaissance Ranch saved my life. Renaissance Ranch got in connection with them and sent a guy down that was going to recruit people into Renaissance Ranch to help with the closure. Like they didn't just say, see you later. Yeah, they set us up for success.
Yeah, their marketing people are going to talk to other marketing people. Yeah. Like, good.
Yeah, and that's how I got to the ranch. And that was tough. So I relapsed in between going there, and
of course you did.
Getting on the St. George shuttle pounding
the first opportunity of choice.
Yep. But I was heartbroken. That was tough. That was a tough one for me, and that was one of those resentments that I held on to for a long time, and I feel like that affected all my treatment at the ranch, even to where I graduated that program and went to sober living and was drinking hand sanitizer before I'd go to the alumni meetings. Like, again, the insanity of this disease. And then that's where I got my first stint with homelessness. Because my family started going to family groups, and this is where my fallback plan was my parents. Like, I'd always have a place to stay. They finally said no. Like, and again, my parents, that's got to be so hard for a parent to have to go through that and say, no, we're changing things up.
For sure.
And yeah, and it's a family disease.
As hard as that was for you, I imagine it was 10 times harder for them.
And that was my first thought, which was interesting. I finally wasn't all self-centered. I was starting to wake up to where I was like, yeah, this is, again, I mean, it's getting real, and I had nowhere to go. Wandering the streets of Salt Lake, staying in the VOA. And
so you got kicked out of sober living because you were drinking hand sanitizer before you left the alum. That's weird. It's weird that would happen.
Yeah, unbelievable. But anyway, yeah, that's where I was homeless for a while and got to deal with that. And finally got to St. George again and had a sponsor that changed my life. And he opened...
Can I pause you one sec? Because I think there's a little gem in there that I would like our listeners to... Sometimes, like when we have people that enable us, right? And I'm not saying your parents... A loving parent is going to enable because they don't want their child to go through hard things, right? And a lot of us don't know how this thing works. They don't have the education or the experience that some of us have. And so they do their best. And ultimately, until it gets to a point where you have to experience your natural consequences by your family saying, no, you can't come back home, by the ranch saying you can't drink hand sanitizer and stay here, your butt ended up on the street. And I bet it was one of the best things for you. You want to know how I know that? Because my butt was on the street for 9 months. And in hindsight, it was one of the best things for me.
Yeah.
And that's what we mean by like you have to allow your loved one to experience their natural consequences. That's really one of the only ways for them to truly awaken.
And this is where I was able to find God. When I was wandering the streets, I could feel my brother that had passed. Walking right beside me, and I could feel Jesus Christ. Like I knew
you're gonna make
who
me
was
cry,
around.
Bro.
I knew who was there, and that is something that I will never forget. And it's one of those sacred experiences that I will never forget. And it opened my eyes to how much the spirit world is involved in our lives.
Yeah,
and how the goodness of Jesus Christ and how He's the gateway to God. Like
I love it, man.
Yeah,
the reason I got a little emotional there is because I felt the same thing. We both have brothers that have passed, and there's times I definitely feel his presence.
Yeah.
So you got a sponsor in St. George.
Sponsor in St. George, dude, he whipped me into shape real quick. He was a guy that I wanted to punch in the face, but I'm grateful for it. Like
A little tough love?
Yeah, a lot of tough love. But it turned out to really open my eyes to God, and he was LDS. I didn't know that until we got into it, and that was an important part of my life too. And he was able to, we could communicate with a God that made sense to us. And then that's when Jesus Christ started really coming in and doing his healing work, and working with this guy for all these years was an incredible experience. And unfortunately, I had another moment where I had those abandonment things tested, and where I was putting my faith in the wrong place. Like I put my faith in Therapia. I wasn't putting it in God. Anyway, this sponsor opened my eyes to God and opened the door, and he ended up getting in a motorcycle crash and dying. When he missed a Zoom call with me, I knew, I was like, this is not good.
Yeah,
like,
something ain't right.
Yeah, and then a few days later, somebody messaged me and said, hey, he passed. He got in a motorcycle wreck. But this time, I knew I had made a breakthrough because of, I didn't think to use. I thought, you know what, this is a test. This is a trial. I'm grateful for what he did for me, and let's take what he taught me and put it to practice. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And
all perspective, right? You could have taken that and used that as rationalization or justification to go out and get loaded, and instead you're like, how do I honor this person by doing the same for someone else?
Yeah, absolutely.
Little step 12 action.
Step 12 action.
Yeah, man.
And anyway, I lived as a dry drunk for a few years. And then had a moment where step 12 really, really hit me, and this is where my story gets a little controversial for some people.
Dude, share your truth.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
This
That's
is
what
a
I'm going to do.
conversation with Curtis Puzey.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
What is it, dude? Let's get it.
Okay. First off, I want to make it clear that this experience is not about me and how it can benefit myself. I'm not special. I'm really not. This is an experience that was meant for me to work through God and Jesus Christ to help others. This is not about me, because this is some heavy stuff. I was on the verge of a relapse. I was so miserable, and I'm like at 4 years sober or so, and I'm like, is this worth it? This does not feel worth it. Like, might as well be using, because I am just absolutely miserable. And just got on my knees and was pleading, like, show me something. Like, there's got to be more to life than this. And anyway, my family planned a trip with all my nieces and nephews, and my parents had planned a trip to Lagoon and my cabin. And all of a sudden, I was getting overloaded with nostalgia, appreciation for my past and how cool my childhood was, and a newfound love for my nieces and nephews. I was so happy, like I was early on in.
Had you been in St. George and you went back up north to do this Lagoon, which is a theme park and cabin?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Lagoon,
you've been away from kind of the area you grew up in for a while.
Yeah.
So you go back and you know, you're saying this prayer, like, there's got to be more to life than this misery. Help me. Okay, I'm just making sure I'm understanding.
Yep.
Then you came back up and you're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You have a new set of eyes and you're looking at it all like, wow.
Yeah, and I had a newfound love for my nieces and nephews who have been dealt tough cards with their dad walking out on them, and my sister having to work a full-time job, going to school, and, 5 kids, and I ended up actually living with them for a while to help them out, because it was that bad. It was tough, but I had a newfound love. I have a hard time even talking about it because they mean so much to me.
Yeah, man, I can tell.
And yeah, they're like my own. And when I was at Lagoon at the amusement park, I was like a little kid. I was just with them, and it was incredible. And I was like, I want to be a dad. I was just, my head and my heart started aligning.
Cool.
Is what I came to find out. And anyway, I had a newfound love for family and appreciation for what my parents have done and what they've created, this connection. And I'm close with all my siblings. We have all stayed in touch and really close to each other. And anyway, after that ended, I went to my cabin, and this is where it gets wild. And this is an experience that will forever be special for me, and it completely changed my life. I was sitting out on the deck. It's in the Uintas, Christmas Meadows, if you guys are familiar with that.
Gorgeous.
Yeah. So my grandparents have a cabin there, and I was sitting there, and all of a sudden, I was sitting out there by myself, and I was startled by the silence that all of a sudden, like the trees were rustling, all of a sudden it just went dead silent, and this light comes through that was like, it made me, I was freaking out. And you're going to see that I have a hard time putting this into words because it was that surreal to me.
It's hard to put things into words that are a very impactful emotional experience.
Yes.
Absolutely. I get it.
And anyway, I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I start looking for Jesus. I'm like, I can feel him. He is right here with me. And I am seriously looking into the trees, and what I was seeing was not reality. Like, not this, it was, everything was enhanced. Like you hear about near-death experiences, these outer body experiences where they see all this beauty. Yeah. This is exactly what I was feeling. And I knew who I was feeling, and it was Jesus. And I'm like, dude, this is crazy. I thought it was either the second coming to Jesus Christ or I died. I couldn't figure it out. And anyway, and then I was looking for my brother. I could feel him so close, like right next to me.
Yeah.
And in like snap of a finger, man, I had this new clarity, understanding, change of heart, a testimony of my religion, which is Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I had a new, like a fire was lit under me to go help people. And that like this is what life's all about in this eternal perspective, this paradigm shift that I had where everything became an eternal perspective, and my daily decisions just, they didn't, the little annoying things that happen throughout the day did not matter anymore. Like there's a bigger picture.
Some perspective
Yeah,
on,
absolutely.
on life and living and what's really important versus the day-to-day
Yeah.
grind and
Yeah.
BS and all this stuff. I love that.
Yeah, and I got a new understanding and clarity of what my past meant, and a new desire to go help people, because this is what this is all about. This spiritual experience, this was not about me. This is Jesus telling me, hey, let's go help people. There's a ton of people out there to help. Addiction is real.
Yeah, man.
And
I love that. This is your story, but can I share something that
Yeah,
I
let's
relate
hear
with
it.
a little bit? So I'm no longer in LDS, right? I'm a Christian, non-denominational, but I grew up LDS very much like you.
Mhm.
And I can remember you're having a spiritual experience with what you just described. And I can remember sitting in a bishop's office, and he said to me, he said, Jared, congratulations on your, 18 months or year in sobriety. And that's phenomenal. It's great that you've been able to hit that marker. And, and he said, let's pretend that you go the rest of your life and you don't use, and you stay clean and you do good. When you get to heaven and you meet your maker, I imagine he would say, congratulations, you did it. And then I wonder if his next words would be, how many people did you bring with you?
I love it.
Dude, chills, right?
Love it.
And like in that moment, I was like, this wasn't a curse. This was a gift.
Yeah,
Like I went through this to be able to help somebody else out, and going through it was miserable. However, I can either be a victim of it or I can use it and help somebody else.
Absolutely.
So we had a very similar perspective shift, it sounds like.
I love it. Yeah. And what this brought me, it was a new enthusiasm too. Like recovery does not have to be, it's tough and there's hard times, but bring some enthusiasm and fun. Like there's some goodness out there. Life's not so bad. And there's hope. There is light at the end of the tunnel. And
you're the guy
just,
for it, dude.
Yeah. I mean, it was so, it's something that will, it's changed my life forever. And this happened like a year and a half ago is all. So I was 4 years sober.
Nice.
And just on the brink of disaster. And finally, it took a miracle to be where I'm at today. Like now I'm working in the temple. Like, well, if you would have told me that 2 years ago, I would have said you're nuts. Yeah. And it's just, I want to give back. That's what it comes down to. I know Jesus Christ is real and Heavenly Father's real and Christ is the gateway to God. And I think people need to know that. Like I said, the 12 steps are putting a magnifying glass on the atonement.
Yeah. The repentance process.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is a beautiful, beautiful process. Yes, it's tough. It's scary. But it will light your soul on fire. It'll put you in a place where you're like where I'm at today. And it's all thanks to God and Jesus.
That's amazing, man. I appreciate you sharing that. And in the big book, it talks about, when people get sober, they return to the religion of their upbringing typically, right?
Yeah.
So that's phenomenal. And thank you for sharing that. And who cares if people, whatever they want to think. That's your story and that's your, right? That's your belief. So hold on to that thing, man. Protect that thing for sure.
It was meant to be shared. Meant to be shared for sure.
Yeah. Talk to me about what's today look like. How much clean time are you sitting here with?
April 28th, I will have 6 years.
Man.
6 years.
Coming up on 6.
Coming up on 6. I'm excited.
Fun, dude. You're just starting to bloom.
Yep.
It's going to be so cool to watch what you do. But so today, what does your recovery look like? Like if I said to you, Curtis, how are you working a program of recovery today? What would that look like?
working in treatment, I quit my job at Copper Rock to go work at Renaissance Ranch. And that's what I want to do with the rest of my life. I want to be in recovery somehow. I'm a sponsor today because the things that I learned from my sponsor need to be shared as well. And that guy saved my life, and I want to go show people. I want to have his legacy live on. So I'm trying to do that as a sponsor. It's been a struggle, but it's been a learning curve, but I have a hard time being the tough love guy.
Dude, I think you should run some of those like LDS 12-step groups because we don't have a ton of them down here.
Yeah.
Southern Utah's got predominant AA and predominant NA, and that's fantastic. People that I've worked with that grew up LDS and really like feel the most comfortable and safe there, they need some good meetings.
Yeah, absolutely. And the funny thing is that's in the process. Like I'm in the process of making that happen. Absolutely.
Dude.
I'm excited.
Stellar.
Yeah. Decided that just a few days ago actually. And yeah, that's where I want to be. And that's how I'm working a program and living amends, like loving my family. It's what my priorities are different now. Family, I mean, yeah, it's recovery, family, God, Jesus. I mean, all these things are what's important now, not the
I love it,
small
man.
things of the day. So
I love it. Well, thanks for being willing to come on my podcast and share your story.
dude, thank you for having me. This has been fun. This has been so fun.
I got to get some more golf tips from you, like the chipping the other day.
Oh man, that was tough.
Thank you for joining us today on We Do Recover with Jared Miller.
Help us spread our message of hope. Like, comment, and share.
If you have any topics or ideas for future shows, please share that on our Facebook page.
That Facebook page is We Do Recover with Jared Miller. If you or a loved one needs help, please reach out to us. Again, thank you for listening.
Brought to you by Diamond Detox, Rise Up Supplements, and the Hilton Garden Inn. This has been a production from A Podcast Studio.